I pretended I was going on a trip and caught my wife living a whole different life. My name is Howard Palmer, and I'm 63, and I've spent most of those years believing that ordinary decency protects you. You keep your word, put in honest work, raise your children, pay your taxes, and the world, even if it doesn't reward you, at least leaves you be. That belief ended on a rainy Thursday when I rolled my suitcase down our front walk, kissed my wife on the forehead, and told her I'd be gone 3 days for a job in Cincinnati. "Text me when you get there," she said, holding my collar like the way she always used to straighten me before church. Her name is Linda. She smelled like the vanilla lotion she keeps by the sink. It calmed me for a second. Then I got in the car, made it to the end of the block, turned the corner, and parked. I sat there in the idle hum, watching rain stitch little silver lines on the windshield, and waited. I wasn't going to Cincinnati. There was no job. The last few months, things hadn't added up. Her new perfume on days she swore she never left the house. A second phone that came free with her plan, but never rang. Cash withdrawals from our account that were for groceries when the fridge stayed empty. Our son, Evan, 35, proud of the money he made flipping houses, had started dropping comments like pebbles. "You should let me handle your bills, Dad. It'd be easier for you," his wife, Kara, chimed in with that sweet voice that always felt like a blade wrapped in lace. "It's just that you've worked so hard. You deserve to relax." Linda told me I was getting forgetful. Maybe I was. I lose a name now and then. But I wasn't imagining the smell of cigarettes on her, and she doesn't smoke. I wasn't imagining her closing the laptop when I entered the room. So I staged a business trip I knew she'd be glad to see me take. She waited 20 minutes after I left. I saw her from the rearview mirror, coat on, umbrella open, walking fast to the bus stop 2 blocks over. I let her get on, then I followed in the car, keeping 2 lanes back, my heart drumming. I felt ridiculous, a 63-year-old man playing detective with an old sedan and a thermos of coffee. But there's a point where curiosity isn't curiosity anymore. It's survival. She got off in a part of town we almost never visit, a neighborhood of old brick buildings repainted to look fashionable. She crossed to a narrow building with an emerald awning that said, "Hale Interiors." I knew that name. Hale was her maiden name. Through the window, I saw her shrug off the coat, laugh, and lean across the counter to kiss a tall man with a salt and pepper beard. He put his hands on her waist like he'd done it every day for years. A bell tinkled when another woman entered. I couldn't hear the words, but I watched Linda pull a thin gold band from a little dish near the register and slide it onto her finger. I sat in my car, my hand gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The rain had softened to a mist. People passed on the sidewalk under umbrellas, the world going on with normal errands and coffee and gossip. And there was my wife, laughing, slipping on a wedding band in a shop with her maiden name on the awning. I went inside when the man left to the back. Linda turned, smiling with professional warmth that died the instant she saw me. "Howard," she said, her voice dropping. "What are you doing here?" "I forgot something," I said. My tongue felt thick. "Cincinnati can wait." Her eyes flicked to the door to the back room, then to the other woman. "We're with a client," she said. "Come back later." The other woman looked between us with that hungry look people get when they realize they might witness a scene. I swallowed, nodded like a customer, and stepped back into the mizzle. I stood under the awning for a long time, rain tapping the canvas. Then I walked until I found a bench. I didn't make a scene. I didn't storm the counter. I sat and watched a pigeon hop around a discarded muffin. My hands shook. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, but I had watched my wife kiss a man in a room where she wore a ring that wasn't the one I bought her 39 years ago at Carlson's Jewelers. and there was her maiden name, painted in gold leaf. When she came home that night, she tossed her keys into the bowl like always. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. I'd kept the lights dim. She turned on the lamp and blinked at me at the kitchen table. "I saw you," I said. She exhaled, a long, tired breath, like I had asked her to take out the trash. "Of course you followed me," she said. "You've been paranoid for months." "What is Hale Interiors?" "A business," she said. "My business. You never asked what I wanted to do with my life." "And the ring?" "Marketing," she said. "The clientele likes a story." "The man?" She looked at me evenly. "A partner." I didn't know whether she meant business partner or something else, but the measured calm in her face, like she had rehearsed this, broke something old inside me. "I thought we were a partnership," I said. My voice came out thin. She shrugged. "You thought we were everything," she said. "That's the problem." Evan arrived 15 minutes later, like she had texted him. He walked in without knocking, carrying his usual air of helpful authority. "Dad," he said, squeezing my shoulder and sitting across from me. "Let's be reasonable about everything." "Reasonable," I repeated. He opened a manila folder and pushed paper toward me. The deed to our house, a power of attorney, some account forms. "We just want to make sure you're protected," he said. "You sign these and we can manage the finances. Keep the house safe in case, something happens to you." Kara stepped from the hall where she'd obviously been listening. "It's for your good," she said with that sugar voice. "So you don't have to worry." Linda stood by the sink, drying a glass, not looking at me. I looked at the papers. The power of attorney named Evan as my agent. My hands shook. The light above us hummed. "I'm not signing anything tonight," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I need to think." Evan's mouth tightened. "Dad, don't be stubborn." "I've got a notary lined up. It's simple." "Like your mom said," Kara added. "You've been forgetful. It's better we step in now." Linda kept drying that glass. I stared at her back and thought of the gold ring glinting from the little dish. "I'm tired," I said. "I'm not signing." Evan gathered the papers, a touch too hard, edges snapping. "Fine," he said. "But this conversation isn't going away." He and Kara left. Linda set the glass down. For a moment, I thought she might touch my shoulder. Instead, she said, "You always thought fidelity meant handcuffs," and went to bed. That night, I lay on my side of the mattress, listening to the wind push the holly bush against the window. The house creaked. My chest hurt. The room smelled like laundry soap, and the perfume she wore when she said she was going to the grocery store. I didn't sleep. I wish I could tell you I handled the next days like a hero. I didn't. I fumbled. I confronted Linda again, and got the same cool, professional voice. She moved her dresser drawers into suitcases that she said were for work. Evan came by with a notary, a man with gray hair and impatience, and I told them to get out. Evan called me ungrateful. Kara told me I was endangering my own future. The third day, my debit card didn't work. "Fraud prevention," the bank said. "New accounts have been opened." I drove there in a fog. The teller smiled, with the training manual smile, and said the joint account had been updated. Without my signature, she couldn't say. Privacy policies. She handed me a number to call. 2 weeks later, I came home from a walk and the locks had been changed. My key did nothing. Through the window, I could see a box of my books by the door. Linda opened the door 2 inches and said, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Evan appeared behind her. "Dad, take your things and cool off at a motel for a while," he said. "We'll sort everything." I live here, I said. My voice came out with that breathless tremble older men hate. 40 years. Kara's voice drifted from the hall. Maybe it's time for Sunny Ridge, she said. They have a good memory care program. I stood on the porch holding my own key, rainwater dripping from the gutter onto my shoe. In the end, I took the box and my coat, and I left. I told myself it was temporary. Just a night or two in the truck. Just until people cooled down. Just until decency kicked back in. Let me tell you what true loneliness feels like. It's not the big dramatic things. It's small. It's waking up at 2 in the morning in your pickup with your back screaming from the seat. And for a second, in that thick, soft second between sleep and waking, you turn your head expecting to see your wife's shoulder in the moonlight. Then you remember, and the space beside you is a pile of floor mats, and the air tastes like old coffee and cold metal, and you count your breath, like a child trying not to cry. I parked at the edge of a park most nights, a place with cottonwoods that hissed their leaves in the dark. I used the restroom there in the mornings, shaved with a disposable razor using water from a bottle, and ate the sandwiches I made from the grocery store's day-old bread. It was early spring. The air had that wet chill that makes your bones feel like old nails. I got sick. Nothing dramatic, just a cough that nested in my chest and refused to leave. I lost weight. I stopped recognizing the man in the truck window. I still had pride, even then. I didn't want anyone at church to see me. I didn't ask my neighbors for help. I kept thinking I could fix it by being patient. Linda would come to her senses. Evan would remember I taught him to change his first bike tire, and that I took him to the ER when he split his chin. Kara never was mine to begin with. I told myself the same story every night like a lullaby. Tomorrow, it will turn. One afternoon, after a lunch of crackers and those little orange cheeses, I sat in the public library for warmth. The library always smelled of paper and hope for me. It has a way of making a person feel less alone. Everyone there, reading quietly, minding their own business, believing some order exists. I scanned the classifieds like old habit, looking for handyman work. An envelope slid across the table. "Mr. Palmer?" the librarian whispered. Her name is Denise. She'd known me for 20 years. She pushed the envelope with careful kindness. This came to the desk. It's addressed to you, my name, written in a handwriting I recognized. My late mother's looping, careful script, though she's been gone 13 years. My heart constricted. Someone had copied her hand. Number. I turned it over and saw the postmark from the county recorder's office. Inside was a copy of a quitclaim deed, filed the previous week, transferring our house from Howard and Linda Palmer to Evan Palmer, signed by me. The signature curled wrong. It wobbled. Mine doesn't wobble. There was a second document, a durable power of attorney naming Evan as my agent, witnessed and notarized. The notary's name made my scalp prickle. Raymond Bell. I didn't know him, but I knew where he worked. It felt like the room tilted. Denise touched my shoulder. "You okay?" "I need a lawyer," I said. The words tasted ridiculous. People like me don't have lawyers. People like Evan have lawyers. Denise wrote a number on a slip of paper. The legal aid clinic that meets at the community center on Wednesdays. I went. I sat in a folding chair under a poster that said, "Know Your Rights," and talked to a young man with a calm voice and eyes that looked at me like I mattered. His name is Mr. Cho. He listened without interrupting, then studied the papers. "That signature isn't yours," he said. "No," I said, "it isn't." He nodded. "And the notary here, Bell, if he's connected to your wife's business, we might have a problem. We can file for an injunction, emergency relief to freeze the transfer. But I'll need more. What kind? Evidence, he said. Photos, emails, anything that shows fraudulent intent. Do you have any access to the house? I shook my head. They changed the locks. My voice broke a little at that word. Changed. Changed locks, changed lives, changed names. He put a box of tissues on the table. I can get a court order for immediate access to your records, he said. We'll try to do this fast. It's going to be hard. Are you safe? I live in my truck, I said. I'm fine. He didn't say pitying things. He gave me a card and told me what I needed to do. Before I left, he said something I hold on to still. You're not crazy, he said softly. People do this to family more often than you think. That night I drove to the street with the emerald awning and watched the shop close. Linda came out wearing a navy coat I'd never seen, laughing with the tall man. He unlocked a condo door 2 buildings down. The neighbor upstairs shouted good night. I heard Linda's laugh float back, her Hale laugh, not her Palmer laugh. I sat in my truck and felt the cough rattle my ribs. The next morning I returned and spoke to the building's manager pretending to be a delivery driver who'd lost an address. He told me the condo belonged to Lynn Hale. I asked if Mr. Bell lived there, and he nodded. Nice couple, he said. She makes the hallways smell like cookies. I took pictures of the tenant listing on the bulletin board. I photographed the shop, the door, the gold letters that glowed in the morning light. I recorded video on my phone of Linda, leaving the condo holding Raymond's hand. It felt like pressing on a bruise, but it was necessary. Mr. Cho moved quickly. The clinic filed for an emergency injunction. The judge, a woman with kind eyes and sharp questions, granted temporary orders. Freeze on the deed transfer. Order for production of records. Permission for me to enter my home with a sheriff's deputy for essential items. We will schedule a hearing, the judge said. If there is a second household and financial exploitation, we will address it. I stood in the quiet hallway outside the courtroom with papers in my hand and fought an urge to sit on the floor and cry like a tired child. The weight of being believed lifted something off my chest I hadn't realized was crushing me. Mr. Cho touched my elbow. We'll go with you, he said, to the house. Evan answered the door with a smirk that died when he saw the deputy. Behind him, Kara hovered, and Linda stepped from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. This is harassment, Kara said. It's a court order, the deputy said, calm as a lake. I walked past my son into my own living room. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and a new candle, something floral I would have sneezed at. Boxes labeled Howard sat by the door like someone had prepared my exit carefully. The deputy read the order aloud. Evan ran his hand through his hair and tried to laugh it off. Dad, he said tightly, you didn't need to do this. I asked for my keys, I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady. You changed the locks. We were worried, Kara said. You were unstable. I saw the deed, I said. I looked at Linda. She gave me that new version of her smile. Polite, small, like for a neighbor whose dog barks too much. I held her eyes longer than I had in months. She looked away first. Mr. Cho asked for the files. Any financial records for the last 6 months, he said. And the notary book for Mr. Bell, if it's here. Linda's eyebrows rose, just a hair. Evan blustered. The deputy reminded him of the judge's order. In the end, we left with 2 boxes of documents, a thick binder of bills, and 3 thumb drives in a silver dish labeled Linda's Recipes. There was also a small safe I hadn't seen before. Evan said he didn't know the combination. The deputy recorded that. As I was leaving, my daughter-in-law stepped close and said softly, "You aren't the man you used to be." I looked at her. The neat hair, the eyebrows drawn into careful arches, the mouth set like a clamp. "Neither are you," I said. The words came out without heat, just a fact. We went to the legal clinic office and spread the papers. We found what we needed fast: transfers from our joint account to a business account under Hale Interiors, rental payments for the condo on Maple Street, health insurance listing Linda as Linda Hale, spouse Raymond Bell, a notary log page with an entry, power of attorney Howard Palmer, witnessed by L. Hale. The signature in the witness line looked like Linda's, trimmed and professional. Mr. Cho made copies. He highlighted things. He built the story. "This is more than infidelity," he said. "This is financial abuse." I sat there, breathing in that paper smell, and realized I had been hungry for the simplicity of words. This is wrong. It felt like I'd been walking a foggy road and suddenly saw a sign. The hearing day arrived like a thunderhead. I wore my one good suit. It hung loose on me. Linda wore a cream blouse and a pearl pendant I didn't recognize. Evan sat on her left, scrolling his phone. Kara came but sat 2 rows back like a spectator at a show. Raymond Bell did not appear. The judge listened. Mr. Cho spoke quietly, letting the documents do the loud work. Linda's lawyer, she'd hired one of course, argued that I had consented, that our marriage was complex, that any other relationship was separate from marital assets. When the notary page came up, the judge's eyes sharpened. "Mrs. Palmer," she said, "did you witness your husband's signature on this power of attorney?" Linda folded her hands. "I was present," she said. "My husband has been confused." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Palmer, the alleged agent is your son, and the notary is the man you describe as your business partner, and, in these insurance papers, your spouse. Do you understand the conflict?" Linda didn't respond. The judge issued her ruling. The deed transfer was void for fraud. The accounts would be unfrozen and restored. The notary matter would be referred to the state. I could occupy the home. Linda was restrained from transferring or dissipating assets pending divorce proceedings. Evan bristled, whispering harshly to Linda. Kara watched me like she'd never seen me before. Outside the courtroom, in the sharp light of the hallway, I faced them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even feel anger, just a tired, heavy clarity, like when a storm passes and you see the branches it broke. "Why?" I asked Linda. It came out soft. "You could have told me you were unhappy," she shrugged, a small movement that looked like defeat dressed as pride. "You made a life so small I couldn't breathe," she said. Evan tried to step between us. "Don't guilt-trip Mom," he said. "You were always controlling." "I was faithful," I said. "I showed up. I paid the mortgage and fixed the gutters. I held your hand in the ER when you broke your wrist, Linda. I stayed up with Evan when he had that fever. If that's control, then I suppose I'm guilty." Kara opened her mouth and closed it. Linda looked at me, and for a flicker, I saw the girl I married at 24, the girl who liked strawberry shakes and wrote me notes on gum wrappers. Then the flicker died. "What now?" Evan asked. "Now I go home," I said, "and I start over." Moving back into the house was like visiting a museum of my own life. My chair sat where it had always sat. The clock ticked. My cough eased in the warm. I opened windows and let spring air in. Linda stayed at the condo on Maple Street, I heard. Raymond's notary license banished from the wall of the shop. A state investigator called me with careful questions. I answered what I could. Mr. Cho filed for divorce on my behalf. I signed my name with deliberate strokes and thought of the false one wobbling on the page. I wish I could tell you justice rode in like cavalry. It didn't. It walked. Slow. Papers filed. Hearings set. Bank calls. But it walked in the right direction. The court found the financial exploitation proved. The house remained mine. A portion of the business account came back. Raymond faced his own consequences. I don't know the details because I stopped following the gossip. I was done standing outside windows. There was one more confrontation I needed, and I delayed it, because some wounds you don't poke until you're sure they won't swallow you whole. It was with my son. He came by on a Sunday, alone. The sunlight slanted across the front walk, making the dust in the air look like small floating lives. He stood on the porch like a boy again, unsure whether to knock. I opened the door. "Dad," he said. "Evan." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he'd pushed the papers at me. I poured coffee. He stared at his hands. "I messed up," he said. I nodded. "You did." He swallowed. "I thought I was protecting the family assets. That's what Kara said. We put the house in my name to shield it. And Mom, she made it sound like you were slipping." "Am I slipping now?" I asked. He met my eyes. "No." We sat with the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock. He was my son, but he was also a man with a wife and an ego, and a particular way of framing the world. He had learned a language of deals and leverage. He had forgotten the language of steadiness. "I can't fix what I did," he said, "but I want to try." "Trying is good," I said. "It starts with telling the truth even when it costs you." He looked down. "Kara said if I apologized it would weaken our standing." He gave a short, humorless laugh. I guess we were all speaking in positions. "Son," I said, and my voice cracked because at the end of things I am still his father. "Love isn't a position." He nodded. I'm sorry, Dad." I breathed in, slow, and let it out. "I forgive you," I said. The words surprised me by being true when they came out. Forgiveness doesn't rebuild a house, but it lets you sleep in it without ghosts. He asked if I wanted to press charges against Linda. I told him that would be for the state to decide about the notary. As for the rest, we would dissolve the marriage and divide what the court said to divide. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a life that looked like mine again. Even if it was smaller, even if it was just a kitchen table and a backyard with tomatoes. The divorce finalized at the end of summer. The judge thanked me for my patience, which I found funny because I hadn't felt patient at all, just weary. Linda kept the condo and the shop under her maiden name, but the court ordered repayment for funds she'd taken from our accounts. Raymond disappeared from the Secretary of State listings. Maybe he moved. Maybe he changed names. Maybe he learned that real lives aren't stage sets. I stopped checking. I sold the house in the fall. I didn't have to, but the rooms held too much noise. I bought a smaller place near the river. The air there has a sweetness in the morning, like wet stone and leaves. I planted tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets and lined them against the fence. I took a part-time job at the hardware store, where most of the day is carrying bags of soil and telling kids the difference between a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver. It's honest work that lets me sleep. Sometimes, on Saturdays, I sit on a bench by the river and watch people walk by with their coffees and dogs. I think about narratives, how slick they can be, how easily a person can live too without looking back. We had a friend once, in church, who used to say the truth is a patient hunter. I didn't like that image then. Now I do. It stalks quietly. It waits, and then it steps out and shows its face, and it is simple. I don't check Hale Interiors anymore. I don't drive to Maple Street. I don't know if Linda is happy. There are nights when my bed feels like a dock at low tide, and I wonder about the woman I married, the life we built, the recipes she kept in that silver dish. But the ache is clean now, not infected with lies. It's the ache of something that ended because it wasn't what it pretended to be. If you've never slept in your truck outside a park, you won't know this. But the dawn is strongest just before the groundskeepers arrive. The sky is a pale sheet. The birds begin their mechanical little songs, and for a minute the air itself seems to apologize. Like, I'm sorry for yesterday. I had that morning a few months back, long after the court dates, long after the papers were signed. I parked by the river like I do, and the light came up, and I felt, for the first time in a year, simple peace. I remember holding Linda's hand in the county courthouse when we got our marriage license. We were babies. We thought love would keep everything aligned automatically, like gravity. I know better now. Love is a series of daily, small choices stacked up. When the choices stop, the shape collapses quietly at first, and then all at once. And if you're not looking, you'll mistake that empty shape for air. People ask me sometimes at the hardware store, "How are you doing?" Not in that quick, polite way, but with real eyes. I tell them, better. And I am. Not because I won, though people love a clean win, but because I learned what endures. Truth. Work. A tomato plant staked upright. A son coming to a table and saying, "I'm sorry." The human heart, bruised and oddly capable of beating anyway. I kept one souvenir from the whole mess. It's a photograph, Evan at 7, missing his front teeth, holding up a fish he caught with me at Lake Dell. The fish looks surprised. Evan looks victorious. Linda must have taken it. The angle is from the bank. On the back, in her handwriting, it says, "My boys." I keep it in my wallet, not to make myself sad, but to remind myself that while some things bend too far and break, others bend and, by miracle, find their shape again. I also kept the habit of telling the truth to myself at night. I get in bed, I look at the ceiling fan turning, and I say out loud, "You did your best today." Some nights it's more true than others, but it helps. Peace, I've learned, isn't a gift given by other people. It's a room you build and choose to live in, even if the house outside is loud. Would I do anything differently? I would ask harder questions earlier. I would listen to the silence between words. I would not mistake calm for kindness, but I would still love, because loving, even when it breaks you, keeps you human. And I would still be the man who fixes gutters and holds hands in hospital rooms. It's who I am. That part no one gets to take. If you are where I was, if your own kitchen feels like a courtroom and your bed feels like a bench, here is what I learned, plain and simple. Don't shout. Gather truth. Let it walk with you into the places where it matters. Don't let people rearrange your life like furniture while telling you it's for your own good. And if forgiveness comes, let it. It's lighter to carry than bitterness on cold mornings. On the last day of the season, I picked the biggest tomato from the bucket by the fence. It was heavy and warm from the sun, a ridiculous miracle considering it grew in a plastic pot against a chain link. I sliced it and ate it over the sink with salt, the way my mother taught me. Juice ran down my palm. The kitchen smelled like late summer. Outside, the river moved on. The same water, and never the same water. I stood there, an old man in a small house, and felt grateful to be alive. That's the truth I keep now. Life can break open twice, once to take and once to give. My wife, the woman I loved, lived a life parallel to mine like a track beside a track. It hurt to discover it. But stepping off the wrong line doesn't mean there isn't a right one ahead. It just means you need to pay attention to the points, to the switches, to the hand that pulls them. I pretended I was going on a trip. Turns out, I did go. Just not the way I intended. I went from the house where I slept beside a stranger to a small place where I know who I am. From being a man everyone decided for to being one who decides again. From confusion to clarity. From shame to a quiet kind of pride. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. Did this story touch your heart? Tell me where you're listening from. I read every comment.